The photograph you're seeing was taken in 1874 at the Worcester State Lunatic Hospital in Massachusetts. The pale boy sitting on the wooden chair staring directly into the camera with those vacant eyes was Thomas Ellery. He was only 11 years old. But what made his case so disturbing wasn't the photo itself. It was what he claimed to see every night before the picture was taken. To this day, no one can explain what truly happened to him. His story sits somewhere between medicine and something that science has never been able to name. Thomas Ellery was born on February 6, 1863, in the small industrial town of Lowell, Massachusetts. His father, William Ellery, worked at the cotton mills along the Merrimack River, while his mother, Anne, took in laundry to make ends meet. By all accounts, their son was a healthy, bright, and sensitive boy. His school teachers described him as quiet, imaginative, and sometimes distracted, a dreamer, they wrote in the parish register. But none of them could have imagined what those dreams would become. Everything began in the summer of 1873. That year, Lowell was gripped by a wave of illness, scarlet fever spreading through the crowded mill neighborhoods. When the sickness reached the Ellery household, it claimed Thomas's younger sister, Lydia. She was only 6. Her death devastated the family, especially Thomas, who had been inseparable from her. According to Anne Ellery's later letters to the attending physicians, the boy refused to leave his sister's side even after she had passed. For nearly a full day, he sat next to her still body, whispering as if carrying on a conversation. The morning after Lydia's burial, Thomas told his mother that she had visited him in the night. "She stood beside my bed," he said, "and she wasn't sad. She told me things were all right now, but she wanted me to listen carefully, because there would be others who'd need to be warned." Anne assumed it was a child's way of processing grief, but in the days that followed, Thomas began waking up screaming. He described dreams that seemed more like memories than imagination, images of people dying in ways that hadn't yet happened. He spoke of a man drowning in the mill canal, of a fire breaking out in the spooling room, of a horse carriage overturning on the old iron bridge. Within weeks, each of those accidents occurred exactly as he had described them. When the rumors began spreading through the neighborhood, people started avoiding the boy. Workers at the mill whispered that he had the death sight. Even Father Donnelly, the local priest, grew uneasy when Thomas recited details of his sermon before Sunday Mass, word for word. By September 1873, Thomas's behavior had become unpredictable. He would suddenly stop speaking mid-sentence, staring into space as if listening to something distant. Other times, he'd fall into a deep sleep for hours, muttering names no one recognized. Dr. Jonathan Pierce, a respected physician in Lowell, was the first to examine him. His report, preserved in the archives of Worcester State Hospital, describes a child of unusual intelligence, but afflicted with paroxysms of mental disturbance associated with vivid hallucinations and prophetic delusions. But what unsettled Dr. Pierce most were the physical changes. During these trances, Thomas's pulse slowed dramatically, and his pupils dilated to the point that his irises appeared completely black. His body temperature dropped, yet he showed no shivering or distress. When the doctor tried to wake him, the boy would sometimes speak, but not in his usual voice. The notes record a measured, rhythmic speech, in a tone described as both adult and emotionless. On one occasion, Thomas allegedly said, "It's not me speaking. It's the echo of something that already happened." The boy's parents grew desperate. When the family cat was found dead on their porch, its neck twisted unnaturally, the neighbors began whispering that Thomas had been seen standing outside at night, barefoot, talking to the shadows. The Ellerys tried to keep him home, but in early December, after another series of violent night episodes, Dr. Pierce convinced them to commit Thomas to the Worcester State Lunatic Hospital for observation. The hospital, opened in 1833, was one of the oldest psychiatric institutions in America, a sprawling complex of red brick and iron bars, surrounded by frozen fields. It was meant to represent the new frontier of mental health, but to most who entered, it felt more like a prison. Upon admission, Thomas was assigned to Ward C, a section for children and adolescents. His attending physician, Dr. Samuel Harlow, was a young doctor fascinated by the relationship between dreams and memory. His notebooks about the Ellery case, rediscovered in 1911, provide some of the most chilling details. According to Harlow's notes, Thomas was calm and cooperative during the day, answering questions rationally and even joking with attendants. But each night, precisely after midnight, his condition changed. The boy would sit up in bed, eyes open but unseeing, and begin describing scenes as if he were watching them unfold in real time. On January 3, 1874, he spoke of the woman in the red shawl who will burn before dawn. 2 hours later, a fire broke out in a boarding house across from the hospital grounds. The night watchman later confirmed that one of the victims had been a laundress wearing a red shawl. This pattern repeated itself with terrifying precision. Sometimes Thomas's predictions were minor, a broken window, a patient escaping restraint, but others were catastrophic. His dreams seemed to anticipate tragedy, and yet, when questioned, he appeared tormented by guilt, insisting he was not causing the events, only seeing them too late. The hospital staff began to fear him. Attendants reported strange electrical sensations when near his bed hair rising, a static hum in the air. One nurse, Margaret Hughes, claimed that the gas lamps dimmed when Thomas entered a room. Harlow, ever the scientist, tried to record the episodes. He placed a telegraph receiver near the boy's bed, hoping to capture any anomalous signals. The device allegedly emitted bursts of static clicks whenever Thomas spoke in his sleep, though no telegraph lines were connected. By February, the child's condition deteriorated rapidly. He refused to eat, claiming food belonged to the living and that he wasn't supposed to stay much longer. On the night of February 18th, nurses found him missing from his bed. After searching the grounds, they discovered him standing in the courtyard, barefoot, on the frozen earth, his nightshirt soaked with condensation. When Dr. Harlow approached, Thomas turned slowly and said, "I finally saw the place where the dreams come from. It's not heaven, it's remembering backwards." He collapsed moments later. Medical staff rushed him inside, but his pulse was nearly undetectable. For several minutes, the boy hovered between life and death. When he finally opened his eyes, witnesses swore the pupils were white, not black, not brown, but white like milk. He whispered a single phrase before losing consciousness. "They'll write this down wrong." For the next 2 weeks, Thomas drifted in and out of lucidity. Harlow noted that he sometimes spoke as if from two perspectives, the frightened child and something far older, detached and analytical. At times, he'd ask the doctor questions no 11-year-old should know to ask. "Do you ever dream other people's memories?" Or, "What if time only moves forward because we agree to forget?" The final entry in Harlow's casebook is dated March 2nd, 1874. Patient exhibits progressive weakening of physical systems, but an almost luminous clarity of thought. He claims the dreams have stopped, that he finally caught up to whatever was chasing him. He expresses calmness, bordering on euphoria. That same night, attendants reported hearing a rhythmic tapping coming from his room, like fingernails striking wood in perfect intervals. When they entered, the tapping ceased. Thomas lay motionless on the bed, eyes open, a faint smile on his lips. He was dead. His cause of death was officially listed as cardiac failure due to exhaustion, but when Dr. Harlow examined the body, he found no sign of disease, no fever, no wasting. The boy's body temperature, even hours after death, remained unnaturally low cold to the touch, almost refrigerated. Most peculiar of all were his final drawings. In the weeks before his death, Thomas had filled dozens of pages with pencil sketches. They were abstract at first spirals, intersecting lines. But when examined decades later, mathematicians recognized them as accurate representations of early waveforms and magnetic field diagrams, predating similar scientific models by years. How could an 11-year-old child, with no education beyond primary school, have drawn something like that? After his death, Thomas's body was buried in Lowell Street Patrick Cemetery, next to his sister Lydia. The hospital stored his personal effects, the drawings, his notebooks, and a single photograph in the records archive. But in 1892, when an inspection of old case files was conducted, the Ellery materials were missing. Only one note from Dr. Harlow remained, scrawled on the inside cover of a medical log. He was right. We are writing it down wrong. No one ever found the original photo negatives, only a faded copy that surfaced at an estate sale in the 1940 seconds. Collectors who have owned the photograph describe strange phenomena: clocks stopping, radios emitting static, dreams filled with whispering voices that speak in the same calm tone witnesses said the boy used in his trances. Skeptics argue that the story of Thomas Ellery is nothing more than Victorian superstition mixed with grief and scientific ignorance. Others, however, believe his case represents something deeper, a glimpse into the uncharted territory of the human mind, where time, memory, and death may not be as separate as we imagine. One thing is certain: his story was never meant to be forgotten. Because even now, nearly a century and a half later, those who study his case report the same recurring dream of a child sitting at the edge of a bed, looking up and whispering, "You're remembering it wrong." If stories like this keep you awake at night, if you love exploring the dark corners of forgotten history, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Because there are many more stories like this one waiting to be told.